Hey, welcome to the Blueprints to Buildings podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Palmer, a prop tech show, and I interview the movers and shakers in the world of property development and real estate. So, this show is sponsored by PropTech Metaverse Solutions, a new way that's changing how developments are visualized, marketed, and sold, and removes the need for outdated 3D models. We use this tech to save property developers up to 11% on construction costs, increase off sales plans, and between 8 and 12 weeks of concept timelines. To find out more, direct message me on the LinkedIn at Glenn Palmer Secure or look in the show notes below. So today's guest is Nat Andrews. Now, Nat is a director and founder of Certifiers to You in New South Wales, Australia, right the way down under. So with over 27 years of experience in restoring integrity, accountability, and to the construction industry. So he's known for solving complex problems and guiding clients through the often confusing planning, building, and council processes. So Nat, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome. Let's dive right in, shall we? So, very first question. It's one that I ask all my listeners. If time travel became a reality and you had a chance to go back in time to who you are when you first started your career, what advice would the person that you are now tell your younger self?
Okay, hi Glenn. Well, thanks for having me.
More
It's
than
a pleasure to
welcome.
be here. Well, the first thing for me is don't think you know everything. The older you get, the more you realize how little you know,
Yes,
right?
don't we all?
Yes. Having some humility and empathy. Think about the actions, how they affect others.
Yeah,
I remember early on, I would get caught up in the power thirst of compliance, working for a council, thinking that I knew everything.
yeah,
And I didn't really understand why a lot of these rules and regulations were there. So don't get caught up in that. Don't create problems, try to solve them. And anyone can work on new buildings. It's good to get stuck into fixing up problems, and having the confidence to put your hand up for opportunities.
yeah.
So, a great couple of examples. I was working in a council and they were looking for traffic control people and designing traffic control plans. And I'd never done that before. The engineers in the council said they were too old and too tired to do all that stuff. So I put my hand up. And now I can design traffic control plans, which is
Nice.
a bit different, right?
Yeah.
But there's lots of other opportunities. I mean, I'm now an experienced international keynote speaker. That's just from putting my hand up from all the opportunities.
Yeah.
So it's also working with people, not against them, gaining an understanding of working with other professions, industries, and collaboration to stop the silo effect. But really, the thing for me was having the confidence to leave local government, right? I worked in local government for 20 years
Wow.
and having that confidence to leave and become a leader much earlier in
Yeah.
my career. So I guess that's the answer to that question, hopefully.
Nice, nice, and I like the way that you t speak about, your younger selves thinking that they know everything. I think back to when I was a kid and I thought that I knew everything, but I knew a blip of what I knew
Mm,
now. And if I, yeah, one of my pieces of advice is you don't know everything.
mm,
You gotta learn from people and understand and the other people's perspective as well. Love that ethos. We get so caught up in ourselves all the time that it's very hard sometimes to think about other people and be that empathetic towards other people's views and other people's standpoints. So yeah, I,
mm.
I I see where you're coming from. That.
Yeah.
So Nat, with nearly 3 decades of construction space. And now leading that Certifiers to You and being the director of Certifiers to You, what is the actual biggest challenge that you solve for clients navigating Australia's complex planning and compliance systems? Now, I don't know a lot about Australia's compliance. You obviously the professional there, but what challenges do you face?
It's a really good question, this one. I like it. It's a lack of communication, collaboration, and awareness of construction planning and compliance requirements. Professionals in different fields rarely collaborate, and many are nervous about stepping out of their areas of expertise.
Hmm.
I'm really trying to change that. I work with about 8 different associations, and I'm really trying to get them all together to try to work together to get them all talking. And it's very hard, I can tell you. It's extremely difficult. But I'm starting to, get a lot of people talking with each other.
Yeah,
For the non-professionals, the compliance system is daunting. It really is. It's really getting harder and harder. But the problem is because it is so hard, they're often seeking out easy answers, looking to cut corners. Oh, why should I have to go through an approval process? It's just easier not to, you know?
yeah,
They don't really understand and appreciate that a comprehensive, holistic approach to problem solving is essential. So that's a lot of the problems. I mean, people talk about red tape, but it's red tape upon red tape, you know?
yeah,
It's almost like a nanny state,
yeah,
especially in New South Wales. It's getting increasingly difficult that even if you want to, say, build a house, it takes 12 months to build a house on a residential block. I mean, that's crazy, you know?
yeah.
So,
Yeah. And how do you get around those blocks, those red tape blocks where you've got, you're wanting to build a house, you're wanting to get people into these houses, but they're having to wait a year. How do you get around those bits?
it's a great question. We actually offer a service where you can come to us early, like extremely early when you have a concept plan or just have an idea of what you want to do, and we can help navigate that process.
Nice.
Whereas we go, well, maybe you don't need to go full planning approval. Maybe you can do some of these things without approval to a point. And then also work through for other parts, maybe we can go with a private certification system, right? So
Yeah.
we can go to a private certifier like myself to actually approve something that doesn't have to go to council.
Yeah.
So we're one of the very few companies that actually provide that complete advice from concept all the way through to completion.
Yeah.
And this is not about promoting me, but this is more about, there are companies out there, very few, that actually will offer that complete service.
Yeah.
And actually trying to demystify it for a lot of people.
Yeah.
They are just, I remember when I was working in the council once, a woman came to the counter and she was visibly shaking, from coming in. And I just came around the counter, I got her a glass of water, we sat down, we started talking, just talking normally. There are, people that just don't want to deal with all this stuff. It's just
Yeah.
so hard for them. So, we try to break it down and that's what I try to do with LinkedIn. I try to break this down. I don't have all the answers like we've just discussed,
Yeah.
but it's about, hey, these bite-sized chunks, what can I handle for now to learn more about and get the
Yeah.
advice? So we offer that.
And there's always that thing about if you want to how do you eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time, sort of
Yeah.
thing. And that's a process. Yeah, I understand exactly where you're coming from. So from your perspective, where is the building and certification industry heading in Australia, particularly in terms of the regulation, the innovation, and the trust between all the different stakeholders that are involved?
Okay, this is very timely. I like these questions. So there's a big push in Australia for prefab and modular manufacturing and
Yeah, yeah,
construction for the solution of the affordable housing problems.
yeah,
Okay. It's innovation that's known as modern methods of construction. It's causing mayhem in the traditional business as usual on-site construction industry, right? So there's financial institutions, banks and so forth that are gearing up for the next wave of innovation.
yeah,
However, governments are lagging behind, so much so that they could actually impact the whole environment of the large scale implementation, and it may never get off the ground because of
yeah,
that. Um, Australia's history of offering cheap and fast prefab construction has been born out of doing a lot of this construction in caravan parks,
yeah,
and it's had a real poor quality reputation. So all these products and there's material compliance and traceability issues. I talk about this at events and conferences. But there's also vast distances between cities. You know, Australia's a very big country. So there's real challenges there for all that. And it's that poor quality issue that people go, oh, I don't want that cheap stuff, you know? Probably
Mm,
like, you know, you used to get products from Japan, you know, after the war. Those were all really cheap stuff. And now it's China or it's, you know, Philippines or, you know, wherever,
yeah.
Bangladesh, you know?
Yeah.
But given those poor outcomes before, there's a significant lack of trust with the stakeholders. Large players and associations in the prefab sector believe that prefab is the holy grail, you know, the holy grail of affordable housing, but they don't understand the compliance requirements.
Mm,
So I'll give you an example. I deal with a lot of emerging companies, so companies that are wanting to bring products into Australia or systems, and I have had a zero success rate of fully compliant construction, and I get calls from all over the country about this stuff. And I had a person say, "Look, I've spent millions of dollars to get to this point. Where am I at?" I said, "You're about 60%, right?"
wow.
And they, you know, they just can't handle it, you know. And I'm saying I'm not
Yeah.
the expert here, but just to actually get them to comply with the minimum standard, that is a problem.
Yeah.
So that's why there's a lot of challenges there. The history challenges, the current glacial path of government, but also the actual compliance and you know, how do we get here? How do we actually get to this next stage of innovation? It's caught up in all that.
Yeah. You said that there was obviously a lot of red tape within Australia about the compliance framework. So that Australia is known for its heavy planning and compliance frameworks. So what's the one aspect of local regulation that you think needs to reform to improve that process for developers and the clients alike?
Okay, so process improvement
Yeah.
and reform has been at a glacial rate, as I've talked about before. In New
Yeah.
South Wales, we haven't had any new planning laws for 45 years,
Wow.
right? So 1979 was our, big Environmental Planning and Assessment Act, and that has not changed. It's been amended, sure, but it hasn't changed, right? The whole ethos behind that. So that's a problem, and they're looking at bringing in a building bill, but that still hasn't happened. There's been a lot of talk about that sort of thing. It's really the approval delays, and we've talked about that before. Is you know
Yeah.
single dwelling on a residential block can be a year or 2 years to get approval.
Wow.
It can cost like $50,000 to get an approval without turning a sod. You know, it's crazy, right? So deregulating the planning system would be a good thing. Like
Yeah.
they've deregulated the building certification system, allow private planning approvals for small to medium scale. This is a
Hmm.
suggestion. More complying development. So, like I was saying before, you can go to someone like me to do an approval, open that up a bit more. Allow building work within other constraints on drinking water catchment that doesn't affect drinking water, potential acid sulfate soil areas, high flood areas, high bushfire areas. We really need a holistic, strategic, a national construction planning framework because
Yeah.
this is, as I said, 45 years in just New South Wales. It's so fragmented in Australia that we really need this national look at things and rather than having amendments to outdated historical legislation.
So it needs a total overhaul, you would
Yes.
say. How difficult do you think that is, given the circumstances that it hasn't changed in over 45 years?
Yeah, well, they've been talking about it for the last 40 years or so. But there was a building bill that went up to Parliament recently in New South Wales for a building act. But it's still a long way away because you know you have the act, of course, but then you need all the regulations.
Yeah.
And it has gone out to comment, and I know some associations have put in like dissertations really on you know providing advice on what they believe should be in there. There's a lot of stakeholders involved.
Yeah.
So I don't know how long it's actually going to take before they can make it law, but hopefully not the next 45 years.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
yeah.
less than
Let's
that
let's
time.
hope it's a lot quicker than 45 years. Jeez. So,
Yes.
so do you see a growing role for immersive technology and digital visualization tools in helping like the developers, the clients, and even the councils better understand what is being proposed before it's even built? And do you think that will speed up the process just a little bit?
Yeah, like you mentioned with the sponsor, there are emerging tools out there. There's, example is the 3D rendered 3D imagery. You can go on to and see, what the site will look like even before it's built. However, in Australia, it's very slow to change. Okay. The take up of new tech is slow due to the dogmatic beliefs of, this is the way we've always done it.
Yeah,
It's the industry standard practice. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. All these sorts of things, right? We really need an influx of young, motivated professionals to modernize it.
yeah,
I'd love to collaborate with them. It's just really you need a lot of let's say passion and motivation and money.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just not there. It's I know there are tools out there, but they're just not being taken up at the rate that other countries are taking them up.
yeah. And how do you think would be the way to promote that sort of stuff within Australia, given
Come
that
and talk
they're
to me.
yeah, yeah. Well, there you go, there you go.
Talk to me. I'm open. I'm open to all these suggestions. I did put together a building audit for high-rise development a few years ago, and harnessing a lot of this new technology. But it changes so often. It's the problem that I find is a lot of these new systems have fundamental flaws, in looking at a few things. So you really need to have the tech knowledge, but also speak to the right people about getting right down to the detail.
Yeah,
I've reviewed a lot of recent tech, and it's not quite there because not speaking to the right people, the people on the ground.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And moving on from that, you're known for making really complex processes a lot clearer. So, do you think tools that actually show rather than tell could help align those stakeholders faster, especially when it comes to contested or misunderstood developments for that matter?
Yes. Again, an important and timely question. These questions are great. I really like them. Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
There's a push. What's that?
You're more than welcome.
No, no problem. So there's a push in Australia for building manuals, right? So these are meant to be the repository of all the information, about the current up-to-date part of the building or the building from designs, approvals, commissioning of services, completion, sign-off, baseline data, it's called, and ongoing maintenance. Now, as I was sort of talking about before, I provided advice to a lot of these people developing these building manuals and telling you what information is available, not demonstrating how the planning and construction compliance was achieved. Therefore, there's a fundamental flaw in these systems. I'll give you an example. An example might be that a building has a fire engineered, fire rated wall system. The solution was designed, documented, assessed, approved, installed, commissioned, and the building was signed off for occupation and was occupied.
Yeah,
In maintaining a building, a question was raised when uncovered for a different purpose, say a faulty electrical wiring. They looked at the fire rated wall and it was a little bit different as constructed to what was designed and approved. I get called in. I review all the baseline data. I find that an inspection during construction, the inspector signed off the fire rated wall system that was almost correct. But
right.
because it was just close enough, right? This
Yeah,
close enough non-compliance had gone unnoticed by everyone, including the fire engineer, and is now not only affecting the building maintenance, but also life safety issues
yeah,
and fire safety issues in the building for the building occupants. This close enough non-compliance now affects everyone in this process. So, yes, the tell and the show are completely different and are very important in this overall discussion. if we can obtain more intelligent information in this process, we can solve the problems
Yeah.
fast. Feedback from investigating existing building stock can feed to better knowledge, faster processes, and better performance for future projects. But it's that little bit of information that you might miss. And that's what I was talking to a lot of these people about, is this risk assessment and who's actually looking and what are they finding.
Yeah. Well, um, yeah. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Grenfell Towers in the UK. That's a clear example of where just a slight little thing can go awry, and obviously, a massive, massive loss of lives. So yeah, you're doing an important job, Nat, and I'll take my hat off. I commend you.
Thank
And
you.
that's it for today's show. Huge thank you to my guest, Nat, for joining me today. Absolute pleasure, Nat, for having you on the show and learning from your experience and insights. And of course, thank you to the listeners as well. As a reminder, the show is sponsored by PropTech Metaverse Solutions, new way that is changing developments, how they're visualized, marketed, and sold, and removes the need for outdated 3D models. So if you'd like to learn more, feel free to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. You'll find the link in the show notes below. Thanks for tuning in to Blueprints and Buildings. I'm your host, Glenn Palmer. Nat, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next episode.